listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God.
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And on this episode, we'll be discussing two movies. One of them is the adaptation of Stephen King's novel Thinner, which is a movie that is incredibly 90s, which is evident by the poster if you look that up. And it's one of those movies that if you didn't see it when it came out in theaters, if you didn't see it on home video, you probably saw it on cable at least 50 times. But we'll be discussing that. And we're pairing it with a newer independent release, The Void, which is currently available via video on demand, and will be hitting DVD in May and Blu-ray in May. And it's best described as a sci-fi horror film that I've seen other people say it was Assault on Precinct 13 meets Hellraiser meets The Thing meets a bunch of other stuff. And I think that's pretty accurate in terms of what you can expect out of the general effects and types of things in the movie. But that's what we'll be discussing this week. But before that, we'll go through some recent news and things we've been watching. And on the news, it was announced recently that the X-Files will be returning for an 11th season. And it will be more than just 6 episodes, because that season 10 was only 6. And out of those, not all of them were even good, really, with some of them being kind of bad. But there's a few good episodes out of it. But the new season will be 10 episodes. So that's 4 more than that last season, and it'll have David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson back. So more X-Files will be coming. And, you know, the 90s and all that continue to live on with the X-Files coming back, Twin Peaks coming back, Jurassic Park is, having new releases come out, and
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beating out Star Wars now for the top 10 box office domestic.
Yeah, that box office stuff, and then so the 90s are strong. So hopefully the new season will be good. The main thing I think that hurt him on the X-Files reboot, and it's kind of weird that this is the problem, is that Chris Carter got to do the most episodes despite being like the show's creator and the showrunner. But I think the other writers' episodes were better. So
yeah, I still liked watching all of that. Like, even though obviously some were better than others, I still enjoyed watching every episode of that. Even when it was like, this is like weird, or this just seems a little goofy. Like, I still liked watching it.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite out of those episodes was Mulder and Scully Meet the Were-Monster, which was directed by and written by Darren Morgan, who made my favorite episodes of the original run of the series. So it's one of those things where, hopefully they can get the quality up. But I think that hopefully they'll get some fan feedback that it's probably not the best to make an epic, multi-globe affecting story arc that concludes in the course of one episode with a cliffhanger. So,
yeah, Derek, did you watch any of the any of the recent season?
I watched some of the new ones, but to be honest, I can't remember anything about them.
Did you watch the Were-Monster one or whatever?
I probably did, but I just don't remember much about them.
If you saw that one, you'd probably remember it. Like, you need to watch just that one at least, because it's like super funny. Yeah, it's great.
Yep. So I did a video on that one too, so you can check that video out if you've seen the episode. It just kind of breaks down some of the references that are in that episode to prior episodes. So that episode at least is worth checking out. So I'm interested for this new season to come back. I'm not as excited for a 10-episode season as I was before this past 6-episode season they had, but hopefully it'll be good. And it seems like everybody's on board. So they have Duchovny and Anderson, so that's the important part. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, and then Twin Peaks is something that I'm very, very excited for, but cautiously optimistic. All these shows coming back doesn't typically work, at least to the extent the original series did. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I'm super excited for all that stuff. So I'm just glad that it's happening. especially with Twin Peaks, since David Lynch is directing all those episodes.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're getting best case scenario with that coming back. You really couldn't hope for more. But yeah, times have changed. Sensibilities, I'm sure, has changed on their end. Yes, I'm super excited for that.
So I read the Secret History of Twin Peaks book that came out that Mark Frost wrote. Have you a chance to read that, Sean?
I have not. I didn't. I went on vacation last week, and I thought about taking it for a second. I'm like, no, I don't want anything to happen to it because it was your copy of the book. So I'm going to try to get to it now that we're like a month out for sure. But I just was so busy before.
That book. So if you're not aware, the book it's an interesting format. It's kind of like it's within the first page, so it's not a spoiler. The book is kind of, they found a dossier that someone had written that they dubbed the archivist, and it's a newer FBI agent that's having to go through all of the dossier, and which is made up of like memos and notes and transcript of historical documents and newspaper clippings and different things like that. So it's all put together, and there's an FBI agent that has to go through and review all of it and try to determine who the archivist is, and then it ties some into Twin Peaks, and so it brings the series closer to the X-Files than you would have expected. But that's all I'll say on that.
Closer to the X-Files?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Not like with the characters or anything, just the
yeah.
But yeah, so
I mean, the corporal or whatever was, out there searching for UFOs. So
yeah, yes. But other news, I know that Derek, you'll be sad about this because, well, I guess all of us liked Insidious Chapter 3, but Insidious Chapter 4 has been bumped out of 2017 and will be coming on January 5th, 2018.
Which, that makes me worried for that movie because we all know January is typically the dumping ground,
Yeah, so, but they're not pushing it back to Halloween of 2018 because then they also have Halloween. But the movie that's taking its place is Half to Death, which I haven't really heard much about. But so that means with Insidious Chapter 4, it's either like production issues or maybe they don't think it's as strong of a film. Because January, but the thing is, in recent years, there have been horror movies that come out in January and February that do well, like Split and Get Out. So it's not the sign it's terrible that it used to be. It's not super encouraging.
Yeah.
But
especially since the third one was good, you think, kind of propel the fourth one to, I don't know.
Well, so when's it coming out again?
It's coming out January 5th, 2018. So I got pushed back a few months. But
you think about what Blumhouse has been doing, The Visit, Get Out, like you said, Get Out, like they've had some hits during that time. I think they're probably gaining confidence then, really, more than anything. Maybe they'll leave the summer for like The Conjuring and stuff like that.
Well, too,
for the kind of bigger franchises.
Well, too, that since they're giving the time slot that it previously held to a different movie, that means, like, I don't really know the business side of it, but that could be that they take a movie that would benefit from the October timeframe release. Because Half to Death, the description on IMDb is, this doesn't make any sense. Tree must relive the same day over and over again until she figures out who's trying to kill her and why. So I guess Tree is the character name. I was like,
yeah, not an actual tree. It doesn't make any sense. It's Clark Griswold at the chain.
So it's just a horror film of Groundhog's Day or Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. So I guess Tree is the character's name, but
cool.
yeah. So it could.
I like that idea.
So it could just be that they're taking a movie that would benefit from releasing in an October timeframe and moving the more sure thing to a few months later to clear the schedule. Who knows? We'll see what comes out of that. But just a little bit of notable news. Then also slightly unrelated to this, but the Nun spinoff that's coming out is going to have Thaisa Farmiga in it. So she is not the daughter of Vera Farmiga, who is in the Conjuring movie. She is the younger sister of Vera Farmiga. So she'll be in The Nun.
And she was in like American Horror Story, right?
Yes.
She in one of the first season?
She was in season 1, 3. I don't remember which other ones because they all kind of run together. But then she's also in what was that Ty West Western in a Valley? I can't talk. In the Valley. of Violence.
In the valley.
Yeah.
That is a bit like if you're talking quickly in a valley of violence. It can be easily
In the
slurred.
valley of violence.
But yeah, so she's gonna be in that. I mean, it's not super notable, but
Yeah, I've never heard of her.
and then
Not that that matter.
And then the last thing I guess we'll cover on news we're going to what we've been watching is that they finally have a date for the Friday the 13th game. Because I know people have been waiting for that to come out for quite a while. I backed it on Kickstarter whenever that Kickstarter first went out. So I will be able to download it and play it when it comes out. It's coming out on May 26th on Xbox One, PS4, and Steam. And
It's cool that they were just waiting for it to be done. You know what I mean? And it's not like they set a date and then it comes out broken and stuff. It seems like they're really taking their time with this and trying to make sure they can do it right. And they have a good base already, you know, from that alpha or the beta or whatever it was released to the pre-order bonuses.
Yep. So the beta was a while back. So hopefully the game launches bug free and it's good to go, and they don't take the we'll patch it. As problems.
I'm sure the servers will be really rough that first night because they were pretty terrible in the beta. But again, that was just a server issue, you know, and that's why they have those betas to kind of figure that stuff out. But I'm sure
Like one thing that
it'll get lined out. What were you gonna say, Derek?
So one thing kind of keeps me uninterested from getting that game when it originally releases is the fact that it doesn't have a single player mode, and that will be released later. You know?
Oh yeah.
So it's like not only would I have to buy that game, then I have to buy a year subscription to Xbox Live too. And it's like I don't want to do that.
Well, that's why you get PC Pro.
Man.
Yep, PC. Also, too, The Wicked One is going to be out on the day this podcast comes out, which is Tuesday, April 25th. Tori Jones is the director. Is that correct, William?
Yes.
Yeah, we caught this at Fright Night Film Fest 2016. It won some awards too, right? Won several awards.
Yeah, had they won Best Kill. I think remember.
Best score.
Yeah.
He may have won like Best Kentucky Emerging Filmmaker or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, they had an award for kind of the local filmmaking community, and like local being like somewhat regional because he isn't just here in town, which I thought was well deserved. Like I think they did a really good job with it for being what it for what it is. And then Dale's in that was in Hazard, and Katie as well.
Yeah.
I had a good time watching that with a crowd, and I think I mentioned earlier there's already one video review up online, and it got some pretty positive buzz from that. And then of course there's been written reviews that are out, and I think is that being released through Petrie Entertainment, which I think is the same label releasing Volumes of Blood.
Yeah.
too?
So Petrie Entertainment has a new arm called Dark Cuts. Is that right?
Bloody Cuts.
I think it was Dark Cuts that was focused on getting out like genre content like horror and getting like smaller indie releases out, and that's the same label that we're releasing Volumes of Blood, some Volumes of Blood horror stories, some undisclosed time in the future. The first Volumes of Blood you can watch on Amazon Prime if you have it now, or you can buy it on DVD. Let's see, I think that was what it was called, Petrie.
Yeah, Derek, you should check out The Wicked One, or we should all even just get together and watch it one day.
That'd be interesting.
It's fun watching Dale and Katie and that running around and stuff, and it's a good looking movie. Like it sounds good. It's competently made for sure. It was entertaining. There's some parts where a lot of people were laughing pretty hard in the audience and stuff. But that'd be a good one to kind of get together and watch, because it's not like it's some masterful David Fincher thriller, or you know what I mean? Like it's just like a fun hangout movie to watch, I think.
It's no Dragon Ball Z.
No,
it is not Dragon Ball Z.
But yeah, you can catch that on DVD, and I guess is it just DVD or they have Blu-ray?
I saw a news release. I was on their Facebook page about VOD that somebody else published, but I could not find just browsing right before we started, I couldn't find a VOD link. But I would recommend that just because, so you can see it in HD. They shot on, if you know anything, Blackmagic cameras. And granted, we were watching this on a projection screen, but it seemed pretty sharp. It looked pretty good. So,
well, I only watch things on VHS, so.
But if you want to make sure that you keep up and be able to find everywhere, if you just follow their Facebook page, which is just the Wicked one, you'll be able to find all the updates. I'm sure they'll have links to everything of where to get it. But that'll be out when this podcast is out. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, and speaking of which, too, Volumes of Blood, their release, I think Friday, I'm going down to Owensboro. I think we're going to go to Eric's house to record the commentary. So that will be a nice 2-hour drive, and then 2-hour drive back in the middle of the night. And I have a shoot the next day at like 8:30 a.m. in a gym. So, yeah, I will be probably pretty wore out.
And then, so if you're in the general Kentucky, Indiana-ish area, our short film Hazard was officially selected to the Mayday Film Festival, which is in Evansville, Indiana at Showplace Cinema South on May 19th and 20th. They also have Volumes of Blood Horror Stories there if you want to see that movie. They don't have the schedule when all of them are showing at what times. Whenever they release that, we will share it as well. But if you're in the region and you want to see Hazard and Volumes of Blood 2, in addition to other local films from this general area, the Mayday Film Festival is on May 19th and 20th in Evansville, Indiana. And I guess now I can move into discussing what we've been watching. And this week, I didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot because I was pretty busy. But I did watch the premiere of Season 3 of Fargo, which is the same showrunner as Legion, which we had talked about some, and the prior seasons of Fargo, Noah Hawley. And the new season has Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ewan McGregor, and some other cool people. So the first episode, it's one of those things where it takes a little while to get into it just because it's a new cast of characters, not like continuing the prior story. But once it got going, I was hooked. So I'm looking forward to watching this show. And it's
how many episodes? Is it 10?
I haven't looked, but I think it's 10. I'm bad about looking at how many episodes they actually are.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, general, like those are like pretty shorter run, as a lot of dramas are like that now, right?
Yeah, I think like the original one was like listed as like a mini series versus like a TV series, but it's like an anthology. Like each season is its own story, and then the first 2 seasons connected, and then I guess this will connect to those because this is set in like 2010, I believe. And Ewan McGregor plays multiple roles. So.
Yeah, I saw. I actually kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, so far it's good. I mean, I don't know that you necessarily have to watch the previous seasons to watch this, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. And like I said, I don't want to really spoil any of the story stuff because I think it's fun to watch shows like that knowing as little as possible. I've also been watching the season 3 of Better Call Saul, which I enjoyed the premiere episode quite a bit. Bob Odenkirk is good as always, and it's a show though that it's funny that it's on air because it's so like I like the pace, but it's paced so slowly that I assume a lot of people could check out because there's a time lapse that like half the episode was time lapse with very little dialogue showing certain things happening. But to me, I found it fascinating because you see somebody like putting this plan into motion and all this stuff. So that part I find to be incredibly entertaining and engaging. But I could see how somebody who wants more to happen would get checked out. But the fact that show's on TV, it looks the way it does, and they let them do the stories they're doing, and the ratings are doing well, and all that stuff. Like, and there's the promise of more action to come because it's tying into more stuff that ties into the universe that was present in Breaking Bad. So it's getting you closer to what you remember from that show, while giving you a completely different type of show in terms of like the episode layout. So that's a show that I'm super in on. So right now we have Better Call Saul on TV, Fargo on TV, Twin Peaks is coming back soon, Game of Thrones is coming back in the summer, Silicon Valley is on, which is a comedy show that just came back. Watched the first episode of that just a few minutes ago that I enjoyed. And then later in the year there's more stuff. There'll be a new season of Ash vs. Evil Dead. So a bunch of good stuff on TV. I did not get a chance to watch any movies aside from the ones for the podcast this week because I was helping my girlfriend move. So I guess Derek, did you watch anything?
Yeah, I watched a couple. I love like true crime documentaries. Netflix always has a couple of them on, and I watched one about it's called Who Took Johnny. I don't know if you've ever heard about the case Johnny Gorch, I think is how you pronounce his name. Have y'all ever heard about that?
I've heard that name, yeah.
He's a kid that got kidnapped in the early 80s, and it's really interesting just to see where it goes because just like any missing persons case, especially high profile, you have all the crazies come out and make a claim that related to like a sex ring that was going on and child trafficking and sex. The thing that makes it the most interesting, the guy that makes all the wild claims, they're all like valid because the guy from growing up in the 90s, we all saw this America's Most Wanted with
Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh. They had him they had that guy on the show with Joe Walsh, and like every single claim he made was true about the sex ring and all the things that went on. Interesting case because it's like you just have all this bizarre stuff going on, and you hear this guy's stories like there's no way that this guy's got any truth to it, and then it comes out like a 9 out of 10 things he said were true. And they have like proof of all these things.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you like love true, pretty interesting documentary to check out.
What and what's the name of it again? You cut me a little bit.
Who Took Johnny?
Okay, cool. And was that on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix right now. Then I watched another one, and it's called The Witness. And we've all heard about this case. I mean, everybody in America's heard about it. You might not know the woman's name, but her name was Kitty Genovese, and she was the woman that was killed in New York in the 60s when they said it was the 60s. And they said they had 37 witnesses, and they ended up making the law about it where, if you witness a crime, you're arrested. And it's the brother that goes and investigates the murder 50 years later. And it's just interesting to see how it affected his family and the family of the murderer, the guy that committed the murder too, because he can't get an interview with the murderer himself. And so it's just a really interesting thing to see like what murder actually does to a family.
Yeah.
And the guy ended up like joining Vietnam because of it and got his legs blown off. And it's just really interesting the path that his life took because of his sister getting killed. And it's really hard to watch when that guy interviews the son of the murderer. If you like true crime and you're interested to see what that kind of thing can do to a family, I think it's really worth watching.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in that. Like some people would argue, some people argue that like true crime stuff, it's people like fetishizing murders and turning it into entertainment. But at the same time, just like, I worked in news. So some stories, they can be like turned into like a sensationalized story or whatever. But on the other side too, a lot of times the things we would try to do too is just show like the effects it's had on the family. And like you hope that it may make somebody else think twice, even if it's one person, think twice about taking somebody else's life. You know what I mean? Like you think it's more than just taking one life. It's not even just that person's life. It's everybody around them. You took their life too. It's.
Well, it was just interesting to watch that because I don't want to like give anything too much away from it for anybody who watched it, but just to see the effect that that it has on the person's family who has the loss, and then you get to see on the flip side kind of how it affects the innocent people on the other side. Because like obviously his son was like 6 at the time, so he had nothing to do with it. So it's just interesting to see the path that they end up taking too because of something their father did. Because I just threw it on and I ended up watching and got really interested in it. But I mean, if you're into true crime and I think true crime and horror are kind of synonymous with each other because a lot of the stuff like Friday the 13th is based off the Lake Oldham murders, similar and things like that. So it's not fun, but it's just interesting to see like you go watch something like, oh, okay, and then to see where people pull from that from the real world.
Yeah.
The witnesses is you got to see the effects of what happens when you have somebody who is murdered in your family. Yeah.
Obviously, Twin Peaks is pulpy fiction, but one thing when I started watching that, I found really interesting about it. So that show, I know you haven't watched it, so that's why I've kind of bringing it up. But that show starts off with the death of Laura Palmer. This girl's dead. This teenage prom queen or whatever, and throughout, like, it feels like it's like a number of episodes, but you see how that one death has affected this entire town. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you go to the funeral with the town, with her friends and stuff, and you see what it's doing to the parents, to her best friends and stuff. And it's like awesome to see, like it's such a great idea where, they make this one death. They center an entire series around it. Granted, they solve it before it ends, but it kind of devolves into more than that. But yeah, just how much they're able to mine from that, because, when one person's life is taken, it really does have a huge effect. And especially, and I'm sure like in a small town like that, just like it happens around here when somebody goes missing in a small town, like in Bardstown or something like that, like that's a huge thing, and that rocks the community because everybody is so close and tight knit. Yeah. Anything else?
The other thing I watched was Kubo and the Two Strings. And it came out last year, and it's an animated film. Well, it's like more of like a claymation style. I don't know if it's claymation, but it reminds me very much of like some of the Tim Burton-ish looking stuff, like Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant. Is it James and the Giant Peach? And but I just love the animation of it, and it's actually a really fun story too, But it kind of sucks when you see movies like that and you go and look at what it didn't make that much money.
Mm-hmm.
But if
that's from Leica, which is the same studio that did Coraline and Paranorman and something else, I believe.
Yeah, but the animation is beautiful. I fell in love with it with just watching it, and I actually watched it a couple of times since. But yeah, it's one of those things where I want to see in theaters. I didn't. I just happened to see it on Netflix the other day. So if you have Netflix and, a story about a kid with, it's just really, I don't want to give too much. I don't even want to get into it because it's a fun watch,
Mm-hmm.
But, if you like stuff like, I don't know, just kind of like an adventure game or something like that, it reminds me a little bit like Zelda and stuff like that on the way the story beats go. But if you like stuff like that, give it a watch. Long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes or something. So it's not like a lot of movies where they overstay their welcome and they make it 2.5 hours. It's the perfect length.
Yep. So, Sean.
Sorry, you guys are cutting out a little bit. I'm making sure it's not my connection here. Yeah. So, like, as you guys know, last week I went for like a little vacation. So I didn't watch a ton of stuff there because the only way I was able to do it was to download stuff through the Netflix app because I couldn't stream it in my room because the connection was crappy and all this stuff. I watched Goon while I was there. The first time watching that, I thought, why not? Canadian film. That was pretty good. And then I think that was pretty much it, aside from just channel surfing and watching a few things here and there. But one thing I thought was interesting, I did not know this was like I didn't know this genre of film was huge in Canada, or at least in Montreal. But I saw a ad for a TV show on, and it was talking about basically all these people. It's like, thousands of people across Canada compete to become part of the biggest film industry in the world. And go to, like this place. And I was like, oh, they're going to say Hollywood. And then they said Bollywood. And apparently like that's huge there locally. Like there's a lot of diversity in Montreal. There's a lot of, I think, Asian communities shitty every other place in North America. And then I believe there's a lot of people from India also there, but there's like a cinema down the road from our hotel too. That was, I was looking up stuff about it, and it was like, yeah, it shows a lot of, I think, independent releases and Bollywood films. Like that's kind of a cool thing. I wanted to see that show, but I think they were just teasing that like a new season was coming on or something. But yeah, other than that, just watched some cool and weird Canadian stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was basically just at the mercy of whatever was on TV there. So I actually watched both these movies when I got back over the past 2 days. So they're still pretty fresh, thankfully.
All right. So now I can move into the review of Thinner. Start with Thinner. We'll do The Void without spoilers and then with a spoiler discussion at the very end.
It doesn't really matter, the spoilers for that movie, to be honest. Like, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
But Thinner will just, include spoilers. Like I said, this is a movie that's been out, came out in 1996.
Yeah. Fun fact about Thinner is it's actually a true story about Chris Christie.
Yeah.
I've never seen this movie. I've never watched Thinner.
Oh my God.
I've only seen like maybe a few moments that like I've always known about it since it came out. I remember the trailers for it and the poster for it in theaters. But and I think when it was on TV, I just heard that it wasn't super, a lot of people didn't talk highly of it. I just remember, I don't know if I I used to read the reviews in the newspaper all the time. I don't know if you guys did that in the Courier Journal, see like 1 star, 2 star. And I always I kind of had a general understanding of some things, but just the concept, I didn't mind this movie. Like I always thought that it was not a good movie at all.
Yeah.
So it was better than what I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, even as a kid, as a horror film, somebody getting thinner is not the scariest concept you can come up with. You know what I mean? Just knowing the concept, demons and Jason Voorhees, they're a lot sexier than someone getting a curse to make them thin. As a kid, that is not super, there's just not a great hook to that. And that's why I think I never watched it when it was on TV. I was like, I know what this is. I don't care about watching this guy get thin.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised, actually.
It's not a bad movie. It just I don't know why. And when I first watched this movie, I had most people go through this phase. I would think maybe even William didn't. I don't know. But I went through a Stephen King book reading phase. Did y'all go through that at all?
No. Goosebumps for me, buddy.
Yeah.
I
had the goosebumps too.
Stephen King was I think that was just because I was born in 85, and I feel like Stephen King was a lot bigger for people that were just a little bit older than me, but then a lot of people my age or younger read his stuff too. But I was alive when all these adaptations of these movies are coming out, and I was reading.
You didn't need the books; you just had the movies.
Movies is the new book. So
the house when we grew up in, we had a neighbor that was really close that lived next to us, and there was an older neighbor that lived on the other side. And I think when he passed away, he gave some stuff to her, and it was a big box full of Stephen King books and Star Wars action figures. So I got a bunch. She gave me all the Stephen King books. A whole lot, and Thinner was one of the first ones I'd read. So every time I read the book, I'd have to go rent the movie, And I just remember reading the book and I watched a movie. And I was still pretty young, so I didn't really fully grasp the concept of the car and the blowjob and stuff. So and then as you're older, oh, how did I not get that? But I was probably 9 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
the book, and I probably had no idea what they were talking about.
So I guess something I should do is just the brief synopsis of the story from IMDb. An obese attorney is cursed by a gypsy to rapidly and uncontrollably lose weight. And so basically the movie is there's an overweight dude who's an attorney. His wife is trying to get him to lose weight. So to encourage him, she offers her oral services
because that's going to work
while he's driving, and while she is, as they used to say when I was in high school, slobbing the knob. While she was slobbing the knob, he hit a gypsy who was crossing the street.
As one does when they're getting road dome.
Yeah.
I mean,
road flaciated, you're going to hit a wandering gypsy.
I mean, when I was in high school and college, that was the thing people said was oh, I hit a gypsy last night. I'm making that
and you're
up.
Oh yeah, high five. I want to see that true crime documentary about, I want to see the movie from the perspective of the gypsy family after she gets killed. How it rocks their community and stuff.
Well, yeah, so you have that, and then he goes to trial, or not even trial. They just meet with a judge and a police officer and stuff, and then basically let him
White
off
privilege.
scot-free. When he doesn't get in any legal trouble, although, like, I guess you can get in legal trouble. Like, you'd at least get some form of manslaughter brought against you. You have to go to trial or something.
Not in a small town.
But unless you and unless the driver and the passenger both admit what was going on, I don't know how anybody would know that they just didn't see somebody. But that's what
doesn't matter. Yeah.
So the gypsy after that goes on. The sham of a trial goes on, and he's let off scot-free. Then the gypsy, who is actually the father of the person he hits, who's an older woman. So like this gypsy's supposed to be super old. He walks up and to the main character, who his name is Billy Halleck. He walks up and touches his face and says thinner, and he starts losing a lot of weight. He'll eat as much as he can and just lose weight.
You can see why, as a kid, I was like, boring.
Yeah. now,
watching a trailer.
By the end,
I wish this was.
Go ahead.
Hold on. I wish this was a Sam Raimi directed film, because when they did the thinner part, he could just start violently. That would be like, just take a scene where he's blood's going everywhere and just have it puke instead.
Honestly, as I was watching this, I was like, man, this has like way more in common with Drag Me to Hell than I thought. Like, aside from just the gypsy stuff, like the whole weight thing, because Alison Lohman's character in that film, she's dealing with former weight issues and stuff, and that's kind of pervasive in even some of the, I guess, demon curses and stuff like that with the pie. Like, that's a whole thing about that film, is her struggle with her weight and the image she had before and stuff. Granted, it's not handled in the same way, but it was just interesting that it's very, like, two very wonder if they did, get any inspiration for this when they were writing the script to Drag Me, because I know the book was probably out then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this would almost make Thinner would make a good double bill with Drag Me to Hell, just because they're both gypsy movies, completely tonally different in terms of like how they move and all the stuff that happens.
Just generally positive portrayals of the gypsy community.
Well, positive, yeah. I mean, nobody in Thinner was like doing like a car attack. Like, well, there was like the shootout. So the attorney, the main character Billy, in the beginning, he was representing a gangster played by Joe Montana. That's how you pronounce his name, right?
I'm sure. I think it is. If not, that's a fun way to pronounce it. I think that's how I always say it.
Who was in Criminal Minds and just a shit ton of stuff like over the years. So he is a kind of gangster that Billy turns to, who goes and like guns down and kills like one of the gypsies and gets like into a shootout with him with an Uzi and all this other stuff and all that. Like, to me, the movie did most effectively, and then they kind of walk it back and make it less effective, is not only does the gypsy curse Billy, but he also curses the judge and the police officer that were involved.
Who's George Costanza's boss for a short time?
Yeah. Isn't that the one that he realizes he's in like the picture in the background or something?
Yes, yeah.
But when Billy goes to visit the judge and his wife just explains what happened to him, about how his skin became scales and his eyes were just like red, like beads and stuff like that, because the gypsy said lizard when he touched him. Like, the mental imagery evoked by her saying that was incredibly effective and made me think about it a lot. And then when they actually show it later, I was like, that kind of diminishes it a little bit.
Wait a minute. So I wonder if there's anybody that's like a false flagger that's like freaking out because they got to see their lizard humanoid thing finally.
Lizard, yeah.
Well, I mean, the lizard in this does not come close to the...
Wait a minute. Where was Spider-Man at?
What?
Spider-Man? Was he around?
What are we talking about?
He fights a lizard man like all the time.
Oh, I was like, what?
Do you even know about Spider-Man?
Yeah, the lizard is not a major enemy. Well, it is one of the more...
It is. When he tried to blow up New York City in the first Andrew Garfield interpretation of Spider-Man.
Well, that was,
And they spent like 7 years setting it up in the same Raimi verse and it never happened.
well,
Oh yeah, that was funny.
But back to the main point that I was making, which I've now forgotten.
You know,
lizards.
that may be why Sam Raimi never put the lizard in there. He didn't want to have one more connection to Thinner in his filmography. He was like, "Nah, I can't do this, Sony. I can't do it. I'll put in the professor with one arm, or but no
Connors.
lizard." Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe too, you realize that the CG in 2001 or 2 or 4, whenever, like, wasn't quite up to snuff to make the lizard a compelling character. And then
You just have your Michael Chiklis the Thing suit.
Yeah.
or maybe he saw some of the shit shows like Van Helsing, the Hugh Jackman film, and was like, maybe everything shouldn't be CGI.
Yeah.
Am I going to cover Van Helsing? Because you used to love that movie.
I would not say that I loved it. No, that was
Like every day.
that was where
How many Halloweens did you dress up like Helsing?
At least a half dozen.
yeah.
I've never seen that movie, so let's do it.
So here's the thing with that
It's not
movie.
good.
When I was in college, me and my roommate at the time, a lot of times before we go to bed, somebody just put in a movie and then everybody just fall asleep and then like have the TV on a timer. And then like at the time I worked at Circuit City and I didn't see Van Helsing in theaters. I just heard about it. So when it came on DVD, I bought it because a lot of people are buying it because a lot of people that came to Circuit City had really terrible taste in movies.
So I must buy this movie everybody's buying.
And we started it like on like a Monday, and it took until Friday until we actually finished it. Because every time it was on, like we get 15 minutes in, and then both of us would be asleep. Because in the dorm, it's just like an open room. I'm sure you know what college dorms are, and so like we almost always fall asleep. So then so the next day it's like, okay, when did you fall asleep? And then it's like. Then it's hard to remember because a lot of it's goofy. So it took like 5 different days to actually finally watch it through the end. And just like...
So you watch Van Helsing 5 times in one week.
Yeah, you watch it 5
love
times.
that movie.
I think we're throwing this out. The takeaway is it put me to sleep multiple times. And I don't know why I got on that tangent, but yeah, we might cover it at some point because it might be funny to go back and watch the CGI now.
I got a great idea for Double Bill. All right, y'all ready? Van Helsing and I Frankenstein.
All right, okay. I'm down with that.
Yeah, that'd be our torture for
Frankenstein, and then Dracula Untold.
Dracula Untold, yes, yeah. And then we could do that before the Mummy. We need to do those two before the Mummy.
Or Bram Stoker's Dracula, the one with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, Bram Stoker's. Yeah, I'm Keanu Reeves.
And then, so there's a bunch of stuff we can cover like that at some point. But back to Thinner, the thing that struck me about that movie was that I almost think it would have worked better as an episode of Tales from the Crypt or part of an anthology than as its own movie. Because there's only so much of like dude that used to be fat getting thin you can see.
Yeah, and that's not really that scary, like because through so much of the movie he's just normal weight. You know what I mean? It's not like, and. We watched this, I guess, on Sunday. So we were pretty tired because we got back Saturday night, and then Sunday I had a shoot, and then got home and was like, okay, I need to watch Thinner. I put it in. We had felt like we were like on the last leg of the movie, like, okay, we probably got like 20 minutes left. And I hit pause, and we still had 45 minutes left. It was only half over. Like this, I feel like it's a little bit too long
It's an hour and 33 minutes.
Yeah, but it feels like it's, I don't know. There's parts of it that definitely feel like it's just filler.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in a lot of movies. This movie, I remember it being a lot better from when I was like, however old I was when I originally watched. I was like 10. You go back and watch it. It's like, I mean, it had interesting moments, but it's like the guy just whispers lizard. Like that kind of breaks the movie, just a little bit.
Lizard.
Because I don't know how intimidating it is if I just walk up to somebody and go, lizard. Like, I don't think that's
or this reminds me of the mid 90s or the late 90s when that Godzilla reboot came out with Matthew Broderick. And they had the commercials with
Oh,
the Taco Bell
God.
Chihuahua going,
Yeah.
here, lizard, lizard,
Hey,
lizard.
Yeah, I was saying that earlier, and I couldn't remember what it was
You know,
from.
it's funny that you all reference that because at my mom and dad's, or me and William's mom and dad's, we had the collection of those little Chihuahuas, and we have the one that says that. So if I'd known that this was going to be a topic of discussion, I could have grabbed it and used it.
So, yeah, so in the movie, so you have him get the
Don't just poo poo over the Chihuahua
Well,
from
I'm
Taco
just-
Bell. It hasn't been talked about in like 2 decades almost.
Okay, something else we need to do too is have somebody dressed up like a lizard person. Get somebody with a hidden camera and a jacket, and then one of us go up to somebody and go lizard and wipe their face, and then have the lizard person run up and be like, "Oh my God, did he just call you a lizard?" And then just run into the woods.
prancing. So this movie was directed by Tom Holland.
Spider-Man?
No, not the actor, the
The
writer
14-year-old
director,
14-year-old.
the writer director who made who directed
Fright Night.
and other stuff.
What else did he do? He did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he
Hang
was-
on, we gotta give him some props.
yeah. So Tom Holland, he also wrote Child's Play. He directed,
He directed that first one, right?
yeah, he directed some episodes of Tales from the Crypt.
I typed in Tom Holland and went to his filmography, and I saw Captain America: Civil War. I'm like, oh, did you do some writing on that?
So he directed Child's Play, Fright Night, Fatal Beauty, and a bunch. So an accomplished director. It wasn't just like some random director doing this. It was somebody that had some cachet with Child's Play and Fright Night, and both of those movies to me were more fun than Thinner. I mean, to me, Thinner feels like a quintessential like '90s movie in that like the setting and all that. But I think that it would have worked a lot better if it was trimmed down to a shorter runtime as part of an anthology, because the central idea kind of wears thin a little bit, because like when Joe Montana's character gets involved and does his mafia stuff to try to get back to get the gypsies to remove the curse from Billy, they could have had him just do one thing instead of like him having some random dude watch them and then get like a brutal death. Like the dude, all he did is he got paid to watch him and to call him when they were on the move, and he gets killed and there's like a chicken in his mouth and all this stuff. Like pretty unfair to that guy. He didn't really do that much for them to brutally murder him.
That's what he gets paid for, though.
to get brutally murdered?
Yeah,
To get brutally murdered. Here's
this-
$100 American.
The small amount of money that he received was what he got killed for. But yeah, so some of that stuff could have been.
So, did anything happen to Joe Montana?
Yeah,
Did
in the
he ever
movie-
die, or he just not show up anymore?
In the movie, he's Richie. He doesn't show, like, he gets them to take the curse off, and they meet Billy's character. The gypsy comes and meets him on the bench.
Yeah, and then we never see him anymore, right?
Because the young gypsy girl says that we'll kill your friend or something, but nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, there wasn't a sequel to it, and I would assume he got away scot-free because he's a gangster, but who knows? But yeah, so then the movie ends, of course, with throughout the movie there's a subplot. He thinks that that doctor guy's banging his wife, but he does love his daughter. So at the end, the gypsy cuts his hand, lets him bleed in the pie, and says he has to give the pie to someone else to eat, in which case it turns the curse over to them, and they'll die quickly. His intention is to give it to his wife, and the guy he thinks she's cheating with. His wife eats it, and he wakes up, and she's dead. And then he goes downstairs, and he finds out that his daughter has eaten it. So then he starts eating it too, and stuff like that.
Oh
So
my god!
she's eating it.
Yeah. I feel like Stephen King, whenever he has like a concept he likes, but it's no pun intended, it's a little thin. He's like, let me just put in a cheating spouse. Like Cujo. It's like the random like affair that's in that movie for no reason.
Yeah.
And then in this, it's just like it makes more sense because he uses it to kind of get revenge. And it turns on him like it's an episode of Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt or something. But yeah, again, it's the Stephen King affair stuff. When that pops up in a lot of his adaptations, it's just so one dimensional. Yeah, it's
one of those things he said, like, it's done
just
a lot.
It's just a plot device. It's not actually compelling. It's just, oh, I'm supposed to not like this character, and that's all it's there for. But again, like, because this is a Stephen King adaptation, like, and immediately the fat suit looks stupid. It's just like, okay, that takes you out of it right away. Like, this isn't The Shining. You're not gonna be really roped into it and feel like this is some tangible place. You're already disconnected from it, but at the same time, just kind of the ideas he has and the way the story continues to develop and it at least makes it interesting enough to kept me entertained. I still thought it was a little long, but at the same time, like, things happen. I could see this book being a page turner, really.
The book was good.
So many things continue to happen. It doesn't just sit on something, even if they're a little ridiculous, or maybe they seem like they're out of left field, where it's like the mob guys having a shootout with gypsies. Like, what? I didn't expect that when I started watching this film. But
he gets the AK-47 dropped out by the.
That's a really still okay. The stuff's happening at least.
But
the gypsy mafia fights, that was just like a war that wasn't reported on in the 90s.
But so the overall movie, like, and two, like, the fat suit aspect of it, like, when I was watching it, it's like this movie came out in 96. That was before the spread of HD TVs and Blu-rays and stuff. So I would think
way before it,
based on the box office returns, like, where it made, the budget back and made, a little bit of money, probably wasn't a big hit for him. But I think on video, it probably turned a profit for him, because that's where most people I know had seen it. And granted, because at the time this came out in 96, I was 11. So obviously I wasn't going to R-rated movies in the theater, but that was stuff that people would rent and you would hear about it. The fat suit, like, when you watch on TV and stuff like that, probably didn't look that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
It looks better than some fat suits you've seen in bigger budget stuff that came out after that.
But better doesn't mean it's still convincing. You know what I mean?
Better than doesn't mean good.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't know. But considering it's supposed to be scary. You know what I mean? I think it is. The fact that he's getting thinner and he's basically kind of being erased, as he says, like, the fact that that's part of the horror and that it looks like, not real. Like, it looks like a person in a fat suit. Like, he moves like he's in a suit and not like he is an actual, like, larger person.
He has,
like, all of that, like, removes any sort of horror from it or any sort of dread.
Yeah. I mean, that they cast Christian Bale for this film. He would have gained 80 pounds and then lost it throughout the course of shooting.
He said, we need 9 months to shoot this because I've got to fluctuate my weight.
And after the movie's over, he would just die. So, yeah.
Or they could have just cast, like, a really big fat guy and then cast the kid from the I can't remember. It was like a really skinny kid. He was also in Road Trip with, like, the Tom Green movie. There's a kid that ate the
G-Day Qualls.
Yeah,
DJ. You know what they should have done is they should have got Chris Farley and what's his name?
David Spade.
David Spade. Chris Farley plays the first half. David Spade plays the last half.
Have like a weak jump.
Yeah.
So,
like, it's a cut. Like, he looks down at himself, and then they pan back up, and it's
it'd be really funny is if it was like a really morbidly obese guy. As he lost weight, he started picking up like a bunch of hookers or something, and that was just the movie.
And then at the end of the movie, he's like, this curse isn't so bad because it stopped once I got thin, and that was.
I can eat whatever. He's like, I can eat whatever I want.
So then he just starts getting all of his friends start getting cursed too. So there's just a line of people trying to.
Gypsies.
Yes, there's a line of
curse watchers. It's like a new program. You go in, like, spit on a gypsy, and you get cursed.
And then like
yeah, dude, I got the
terrible.
lizard curse.
And then the old gypsy guys eventually is like, damn, I need to use a different curse. So you start turning right to lizards, and that's what caused the reptilian scare in the Infowars Alex Jones section of the internet, the conspiracy theorist. But back to the movie. Like I said, it's a Commit 96, directed by Tom Holland. So it deserved attention with Tom Holland directing, being a Stephen King adaptation.
But she did the Langoliers too.
Yeah, so
And I remember liking that a lot, but I last time I watched it was I was a kid.
The Langoliers. We'll have to cover that one time.
Yeah.
so
I think the concept is better than the film.
looking at the average user score, it's a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb, which I don't think is that unreasonable. Let's see.
I mean, I feel like every movie is like between a 5 and a 7.
Yeah, so there's a lot of movies.
Bad or really, it doesn't seem like that though.
I mean, it seems like a lot of things fall in that range.
On IMDb at least.
Well, too, I think a lot of times with horror stuff or genre stuff, that the user reviews are so on Rotten Tomatoes is 16%. So it's much lower on there than it is on the user reviews. Because I think on user reviews, it being a Stephen King movie, being a horror movie coming from the 90s, you have a lot of people who just kind of like it because they saw it during the era and have some nostalgia for it. And you're not grading it on as harsh of a curve when you're looking at it through the genre lens versus just average reviewers from newspapers and magazines and outlets reviewing it. But I think that the 16% on Rotten Tomatoes I think is low. I think that the IMDb score it's like 5.7. So I think that 5.5 to 6. Like in my opinion, anything that's 5 or up is worth watching. Stuff that's a 4 or 3 can be worth watching because it's like so bad that it's fun to watch territory. And then you have a 1 is the Cabin Fever remake.
Okay, no. First of all, I don't think any of us actually gave the Cabin Fever remake a 1. I think it was all below a 1.
If it's a scale from 1 to 10 where you have to give it at a minimum of 1, then yeah. But if you can give it less than 1, okay. But
look, if I had to watch the Cabin Fever remake again, I'd rather get hit by a car that Chris Christie was driving while I was getting flatiated. I don't want to watch that movie anymore.
But yeah, so I guess we can give Thinner our scores and then move on to The Void. So Thinner, like I said, I think a 5.5 is right. I mean, it's enjoyable enough to watch if it's on TV. And it's on Netflix, so you can watch it on Netflix Watch Instant. But it's not something I'm recommending everybody go out and watch immediately. Because like I said, the fat suit in the beginning, it's not terrible, but it's also is this fat suit, is it better or worse or equal to the one from Shallow Hal that they had Gwyneth Paltrow in?
It's probably worse.
I mean, like I said, regardless, it's a different for me, it's different when it's a comedy film. It's way more. You have way more leeway. I'm totally fine. That's kind of the funny part about it. Sometimes is even if it doesn't look totally real, it looks ridiculous. It being a horror film, granted, there's some humor in this for sure, and they play on that. But and maybe I'm putting too much stock in it actually being scary. But it has that, when you call something, a Stephen King adaptation, and it's not something, like one of his drama films. This is like a genre picture. You expect it to be scary, so you assume the thought process is this is supposed to scare you, and it's it doesn't. It makes you, just makes you laugh a little.
Yeah. So Derek,
I was going to show a picture of Chris Christie throwing out the first pitch, but that's too much. Anyway, I'm going to go with 4 out of 10. I enjoyed it more when I was younger, and then having watched it again this time, it's so I think I give it 4 out of 10.
I mean, like I said, I was halfway through. I was like, oh man, we've got a lot to go.
It feels long, yeah.
But then a lot of crazy stuff happened that was really dumb that I kind of liked. I would say a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed it.
once once Joe Mantegna's character gets involved, then the fun factor goes
He
up
is
dramatically.
ready to fuck some shit up. He's like, let's fucking get these gypsies.
Well,
like he just wants to get revenge on them for wronging him. Like, and it's cool that he's like got that dude's back because he got him off of his case.
In the car, he got him off.
Well, I will say, like, the movie does get fun toward the end. Like you said, when all the crazy stuff starts happening, it does get enjoyable. Would you like to see a Nicolas Cage character?
Yeah, I think they should remake this
With
just
Nicolas
because
Cage.
it's so ridiculous. Yes. Instead of a bear suit, it's a fat suit. And
No,
like
so what
not
they do
the honeybee, not the pie.
So what they can do is have Nicolas Cage gain a bunch of weight and play the larger version, and then have Matthew McConaughey play the thin version.
No. Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal and thinner.
He doesn't even have to gain weight. He can just go up.
Real quick before we go on, some of the trivia on here. So while in production, Tom Holland was stricken with Bell's palsy, which is a virus that paralyzed half his face. The effects could have been minimized, but if he would have gotten a steroid immediately, but the producers insisted he keep working. So it was 36 hours before he got to a doctor, and it took more than a year and a half for him to fully recover. And it said the result of which was the end of his Hollywood career for a decade. So that screwed him up. And then there was I feel like there was another little thing in here that was pretty cool.
So for him, probably not worth it.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. Yeah, that was something I was like, damn. I think it said he spent like 6 years researching for this film or something like that. Oh, and also too, he spent 6 years developing it, and a reason it kept getting delayed is because executives feared the public would liken the protagonist's plight to the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Which is so
that makes sense.
Yeah, so weird.
Something else I feel like, this is just real quick on Stephen King films. I feel like Stephen King films and Roger Corman films are similar in this way that that's their big break, and it's not. Because how many times have you seen somebody be in a Stephen King film, and that was like their shining moment that got them, on the correct. It doesn't happen. Usually, you do these films, and that's it.
Well, too, I think another side of that is there are so many Stephen King adaptations at different levels of quality, because you have some that have like Tom Hanks in it, and then you got these like lower rent genre horror adaptations and things like that. So it kind of ranges.
I wish they were still pumping out Stephen King adaptations with this frequency, and I want them to be made in the exact same way, like the same mid-budget, workman-like quality. Like, let's not try to worry about making them super dramatic or sexing them up. Like, if it's a dumb story, just just do it. You know what I mean? Granted, they took these things very seriously. I'm not saying that at all, but there was something about, there's like a certain to the way a lot of these Stephen King adaptations were produced, where even if they're not the greatest films, there's just something about them that still make them watchable, I think, at least on a basic level. Even ones like this that are kind of not the best regarded as far as Stephen King adaptation goes. There's still something there.
Yeah, well, the source material, the source material is still good. The adaptation might not be that great, but at the basis, or just maybe ate a lot of donuts in between,
Yeah, and maybe these concepts too are maybe a little bit too hokey for studios to get behind, kind of in a modern age. But at the same time, it's like you see so many like John Carpenter films seem like they're getting remade all the time, or at least they're trying. There's talks about them getting remade and stuff, and there's so much Stephen King fodder. Like, I would be interested in seeing some remakes of a lot of these at this point.
Well, there will be like the Dark Tower movies are coming out.
Yeah.
And there's a new It coming out, so there will be Stephen King back in the theater. So
I hope that It takes off, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, Maximum Overdrive, smart cars."
But so now I can move into our discussion of The Void, and we'll start out without spoilers and go into spoilers at the end. So if you haven't seen it yet, you can feel free to listen until we tell you to duck out on spoilers. And this is a movie that initially came out and premiered at festivals and things like that in 2016. It's now available on video on demand services. I believe everybody watched it from Google Play. It's also available on Amazon, some other places, iTunes. So you can rent it right now. I believe it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray in May. And so looking at the IMDb synopsis, shortly after delivering a patient to an understaffed hospital, a police officer experiences strange and violent occurrences seemingly linked to a group of mysterious hooded figures. And so this is where some people have said that it's kind of like Assault on Precinct 13 with like occultists instead of gang members coming after the people inside. Instead of it being a police station, excuse me, it is a hospital. So I would agree with that assessment. It's just this cop sees somebody that's that's sick or injured, takes them to a hospital. Then they're followed by hooded cult members, and things go from there. And then there's, H.P. Lovecraft inspired stuff and effects that look kind of in the same wheelhouse as The Thing, and a bunch of stuff like that. So it just mashes up a bunch of different types of movies, and then it mixes in kind of like the more Lovecraftian Hellraiser type stuff as well. So the overall product shifts gears a lot, because I've seen like some people's criticism or critique that's like maybe they should just pick one element to focus on instead of having all the elements that they bring into the film. But the directors, Jeremy Gillespie and Steven Kostanski, also had an effects background, which shows based on all the effects in this, because it's not a huge budget movie, but there are. I think they even had a Kickstarter for it, or Indiegogo, or some fan fan funding campaign. But the effects in it are really good for being a lower budget movie, and it mostly all being practical stuff that looks really good for the budget level.
Do we know the budget?
I don't see it. I think they had like a fan raising campaign. I forgot to look it up, but it's not like some huge budget movie. Like it doesn't have a budget anywhere close to approaching the remake of The Thing from a few years back. So
No, it's a prequel.
Or the Thing prequel from a couple years ago. So, lower budget movie mostly takes place in one location, which is in this hospital, and has all these different elements. You have a core cast of characters. The main character is Daniel, who's a police officer, and then there's some other people in the hospital, and then there's like a father and a younger guy, a son, a teen dude that show up.
Well, but they don't really make that clear. Do you know even?
Well, that from looking at the cast listing and the character name.
Yeah, but it takes like the entire movie to figure out that they're related.
And Ellen Wong from Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, Knives.
Yeah,
Knives Out. Okay, yeah, I did not realize that was her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have some more people in the hospital, and you have some cool moments. Like I said, the effects and the genre bending element and the milieu of it are kind of what the main draw is. Because it's kind of like Stranger Things, and then it pulls a bunch of stuff that people are familiar with and like from eras past. It's kind of the main draw to it. The story, as I know we kind of alluded to earlier, isn't super clear through a lot of it, and in terms of exactly what's happening. But that's the nature of a lot of these lower budget indies, and a big complaint of a lot of people on newer independent horror is that it's all slow burn with nothing happening until the very end with a disappointing payout. This has stuff happening throughout, so that's really not the complaint with this one. And the performances are all good enough, and there's some pretty good imagery, and there's some really cool shots. Like the white hooded cult members, and these white hooded people do not resemble KKK members, which is fortunate. But the visuals and the effects to me are more the draw than the story for this. But yeah, so anybody else have thoughts on this?
Yeah, the biggest problem I have with this movie is like I felt like that they asked like a kindergarten class to write the script for this because it's not cohesive and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And you're watching and it's like, what the hell? Like, come on, guys. None of this.
But Derek, and then the big monster comes out of the wall and they blow his head off.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, God. It's like, none of this makes any sense. It takes like half the movie to realize that certain people are married to each other. And then it takes the entire length of the movie to realize that two of the people are father and son. And there's some type of reason why things are going on, but it's never fully clear. And it's just like, that's one thing.
Hold the deep spoilers till the end.
I'm not, no, that's not a deep spoiler. I mean, but like, I'm just saying, like, that was my biggest issue is like, I watched the movie and I'm like, none of this makes any sense. Like, they don't know how to write a script. They just like threw some shit together and they filmed it and they had some stuff that looked cool, but I don't know. I was just so stressed out with the script that I couldn't even enjoy the movie because none of it made sense.
Yeah. So like I totally get that, like the appearance of that they just threw crap on, they just kind of threw crap on a page to get, their goal was to seemingly put cool effects on screen to show off their work, which some of that was pretty good. But I don't want to be quick to say that because they may have worked very hard on the story.
You couldn't tell it.
It just didn't work out. And they obviously attempted, I'm guessing their goal was to kind of be obviously a little mysterious, but there's no tension. There's no buildup. Nope. And so every time a character appears on screen, I feel like, okay, you get a little bit of introduction and you get a little slice of kind of what these characters are. The sheriff, you're like, okay, well, his dad used to be a sheriff, you know what I mean? And maybe he's not living up to what his dad did before. And then Ellen Wong, she's a student, but like everybody, if you find out something within the first few moments of seeing them, that's all you ever learn about those characters, really. Yeah. Like, as far as like, they don't develop anymore. You don't care about them anymore. You don't learn anything else about them anymore. You just kind of, you see these characters and you feel like you know them at a very long, it's a distance that you know them at, and then you just see some stuff happening. And because it's like you're seeing somebody from afar, you don't really care what happens to them.
No, you don't.
Because you don't feel connected to them. And
that was the thing in this is like, there was no tension because I didn't give a flying fart what happened to anybody. It's like you could have killed these people in the worst way imaginable and be like, oh, okay. I think that's what was much is like, at no point did I care what happened to any character. I didn't care about any of their story plots. I mean, a lot of it wasn't cohesive enough to make sense because, and it's like, and if it takes you, 5 hours to get to the fact that these two people are married and things happen, it's like you've screwed up because that should be something that is kind of set up early on. And there's no caring for those people because it's like, God damn, it took the entire movie to get this out.
The film tries to be mysterious, but then you're just confused about some basic stuff. That makes you be like, okay, well, this rest of this stuff, obviously, it makes everything else not feel well thought out. If everything else was built and kind of seemed like it was like handled with like, a master craft as far as the characters and how something like the story was doled out, even like the structure of it or whatever, then a lot of the more mysterious elements, you may be more hooked in. You may be like more, willing to kind of think that these people are smarter than you and there's something else there. But because some of the basic things just don't even feel like they're connecting, then all of the mysterious and weird stuff they throw in the imagery, it's just like they're just trying. It feels like they're just trying to throw imagery on screen for the sake of doing it. They like weird movies, so they wanted to have these weird figures, and then they wanted to have this weird guy that looks like he's from Hellraiser. Minor spoilers, but again, it's just a creature effect. Like you see this guy, and granted, he has a little bit of his story, but at the same time, you have no connection to him. You don't care that he's a villain. You don't actually hate him. He's the bad guy, and you don't even hate him. You're just like, okay, he's a bad guy. I get why he's bad, but I don't really care that he's bad.
Well, the like, so a lot of these movies, there's a lot of movies that do this thing. So Event Horizon and Sunshine, which were sci-fi horror films. Event Horizon was by Paul W. Anderson, who's directed Resident Evil, and you've heard my thoughts on his career before. Sunshine, directed by Danny Boyle, who made 20 Days Later, Slumdog Millionaire, and some other stuff. And there's a bunch of other movies that do this stuff, where you have this kind of big, broad concept that has a lot of scary imagery and can go in a bunch of different directions. But then by the end of it, they've boiled it down to a kind of standard antagonist that your remaining characters have to go against. And all these movies kind of do, a lot of movies do that, because if you just have it nebulous and like, this isn't a David Lynch version of what the story is, where it's just who knows what the hell happened, even more so, they kind of boil it down to give you like a singular person or nemesis to the characters, and you kind of get some idea of what their reasoning is. So you have that kind of happens in this movie, where I think they would have been better served by maybe not doing that and going even further with the trippy.
This is minor spoilers. Yeah, there. The character at the end, you don't really see. He is connected to some other people in the film, though, so it's not like he's totally out of left field at all. He's not like just doesn't appear out of thin air, but it's like bring him in throughout the rest of the film. Use this character you've designed in this, like occasionally there's weird flashes of the sheriff being in different places or whatever. Bring this guy in, make him a mysterious figure. You know what I mean? Like, building him up throughout the film.
They have him do some things throughout.
But it's just so.
It's in it's in a B plot where you don't know necessarily what's happening.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: like a movie I've talked about in the podcast before. I don't think we've ever reviewed it. I don't think. Maybe we did. I can't remember. It was Frankenstein's Army.
We did a video blog.
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because everything that movie did right, in the fact that like this was an effects-driven film with crazy creatures that were really an afterthought on film. Whereas they should have been the forefront. And you go into, they're both similar films because you go into, close quarters, kind of hellish environments. But Frankenstein's Army had fun with it. And you had all these creatures coming out from everywhere, and there was some you didn't like the characters, but the creatures created the tension because they were just off the wall, batshit crazy. Whereas on this, the creatures created no tension, even though they try to make you like some of the characters. And it's like, why can't you have done a little bit of that and make it to where there's some tension just by the craziness of the creatures and people being fearful of them?
Well, yeah, a lot of it was them standing back, shooting them. A couple of them may have got grabbed, but really it was like, okay, here's our chance to show off this creature design. Here's this creature design.
Something else the movie did a couple of times is that one of the earlier times that one of the creatures attacks someone, they kind of like, you see the creature and then the moment it attacks, it's kind of off screen and then you see the aftermath. There's a few times they kind of show you the aftermath or the end of things, but not it actually happening in a suspenseful way. I'm assuming that was due to budgetary or time restrictions, or the prosthetics or the special effect they're using didn't work as planned, so they had to kind of jump around the cuts. But in terms of narratively, like, you see a person and they're being drug away. It's like, what, why didn't you make that like more tense and shocking?
Yeah. Because like, I think of like there's a scene toward the end. You've already seen the creature a little bit, but one that they go into happen to see out of the corner, like where the guy
don't spoil it too much.
No, this is the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I didn't know what you were talking about at first.
Yeah. Sorry, you're talking about, this is from the thing, but you see like Wilford Brimley's character put his fingers in a guy's face and you see him drag him off. And it's like, have more moments like that where you're kind of, what the hell is that? And then it kind of builds up that tension, and this did not do that.
Nothing was creepy about it. And it had the potential to be. It's a shame because there was, a lot of talented effects stuff on the screen, and cool creature designs for sure. But, it's, maybe they'll learn a lesson from this. Maybe they had their fun going all crazy with creature effects, and next time they'll come at it from the other angle and use the creature effects to support the story, not just making a story to show off creature effects. It's just a turnoff whenever, whenever a film gets made and it's like, okay, you can tell that they like these things, and I like the things they like too, like that's cool. But when it feels like there's actually nothing there of value that you haven't gotten before, then it's just like, man, you're just kind of, you're making this just to kind of, I don't know why, but then I don't know why I'm watching this. It's a bummer.
Yeah, well, that's why I like to compare Frankenstein's Army to this, and I'll always praise that movie to the highest degree I can because it's great. But that was a dumb movie, and it knew it was dumb. Mm-hmm. But they made the highlight of the film was the creatures and there's the craziness that ensued when they were on screen. And if this had maybe went for that factor and tried to, because I feel like what this movie was, I feel like they had what's the old saying? They have champagne taste with beer money. And that's what this movie to me was because they had this highbrow concept that they had this overarching theme and they try to get really fancy with having, the doctor and all this different things. Then stop doing that. Just worry about craziness in the dungeon and just have fun with that. Have fun with those characters in this environment. And they never really did that. They just tried to give everything too much meaning and and it's like, you're not very good at telling the story you're telling. Mm-hmm. Scrap it. Yeah. And just go for just some batshit insane things and just have fun with this.
I feel like it's like they're taking themselves a little bit too seriously, better than they can kind of handle this type of storytelling right now at this point in their careers, or at least the way this one turned out.
I looked up the Indiegogo campaign for the movie. They raised $82,510. So, I mean, that was in the Indiegogo was to help build monsters for the film. So that wasn't the entirety of the budget. They probably had more money. So, like, without knowing the exact budget, like, their focus was on single location creature stuff. But the actual user reviews on this, at least on the aggregators, Rotten Tomatoes, currently The Void has a 74% tomato meter, which is certified fresh, and an audience score of 53%. So I think that basically what comes out of it is people like it for the nostalgia factor and the effects. Mm-hmm. The story I don't think is a strong suit. The acting, everybody does a good enough job with what they're given. It's just that they don't have a narrative that really draws you in and makes you concerned about the outcomes for these characters, because in some cases the relationships between the characters aren't sketched out very well to begin with, and you kind of have to get more backstory filled in as you go along. But by doing it that way, you don't really have a connection or concern for these characters early on, and you don't hate any of them enough to just, watch it like a Friday the 13th sequel, or you just want to watch everybody get brutally murdered.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in like a weird no man's land, but like in the world of like the low budget horror, it is not the slow burn, The Witch, and all these different things like that have come out in recent years, the Babadook, where it's like a slower movie. It's not that. It's got a bunch of stuff.
I completely disagree with you on that. I feel like this was the least I've ever watched.
So you don't think
it was an hour and 40 minutes, and it felt like it was 3 hours.
So you don't think that, but literally though, from the beginning, like regardless of how you think it moved, they literally had effects and deaths and creatures from early on in the movie throughout. There were slow parts.
There was a good 40-minute gap in between monsters. I feel like there was because you didn't get the first monster till 30 minutes in, and then you probably didn't get the next one till 40 minutes after that. So there was a long distance of no creatures and thing.
And yeah, there's a lot of creature effects for an independent film of this caliber. There's a ton. So if you like seeing that stuff, definitely check it out. But for me, even I get what you're saying too, Derek. Actually, when all the creature effect stuff were happening, that's the slowest part of the movie, because I was just what is going on? I don't really care. It was just effect after effect, and it was just a slog kind of to get through.
Yeah.
I kind of get what you're saying, but like in a traditional sense, when some people think about a slow movie, they think nothing happening. Tons of stuff's happening. It's just not being done well.
Yeah, and my point too is more that it's not the no effects, nothing on screen for the last 5 minutes. There's things on the screen throughout. The pacing,
You just don't care about it.
And the investment, but yeah, and to like the soundtrack, is this like the Kickstarter, or not the Kickstarter, the Indiegogo campaign and all that stuff had started like 2015 or earlier. So this was before Stranger Things was released and was well publicized and a cultural phenomenon. So this wasn't piggybacking off of that. It was just more of an homage to the, 80s low budget horror films. And the filmmakers came from the Canadian film collective group Astron 6. And I believe they were involved with making the movie Manborg previously. And then other filmmakers from that group made the movie The Editor, which is kind of like a funny take on giallo films. So this feels like in that general wheelhouse of like referencing a bunch of stuff you liked on a relatively moderate budget, a few $100,000, but not being a fully self-contained, fully entertaining film on its own, standing, separate from all of the nostalgia factor. So I think a lot of people like it just because it has these elements of other things they do like, and it's just kind of repackaging in a different way. There could be people who really enjoy the story from this movie.
You know what? This is something I was going to save till I reviewed it and gave it a score. But I'm going to go ahead and just say this now. If you want to see the good version of this movie, watch VHS 2, and one of the segments they have an exact segment that tackles the same exact type of movie, and it's like 15, 20 minutes long, and it blows this out of the water.
And the cult one?
Yeah, and it's just
different.
It tackles the same crap almost. It's like the same. It's the same movie condensed into like 20 minutes, and it does everything better. And it's way more interesting, and it's actually got like what the hell moments. And there's not as many effects in it, obviously, because it's so short. But it's like if you're looking for a film that deals with cults and things like that, it's much better.
Oh, so
way better.
So another example of the slow burn horror film, I was kind of contrasting this against, be like the House of the Devil, where it really takes until the last like 10 minutes to see the actual effects or creatures or whatever it is on screen, or with the crux that is, as opposed to this. But like, I don't think this necessarily, like, I think that the thing is there's so many different things going on. Had they just picked one direction and went with it, then it would have flowed better. But since you have so much stuff going on, because there's a part relatively early on where there's a character that kind of cuts their face up and stuff because they're kind of like possessed.
Off.
So that reminded me.
They have a lizard curse and they're trying to get it off.
Yeah.
So there's also like, Lovecraftian, inspired creature designs, kind of like The Thing early on. And then there's like Silent Hill kind of inspired stuff that happens later. And like characters have to go into kind of a basement dungeon area. And usually in a movie that like will just instill a feeling of dread or fear or excitement if, you just want everybody to die in a horrific, entertaining way. And this is more of just, when I was watching, I was just kind of like, oh, they're going to go downstairs for a while now. So there wasn't the narrative push of me being super invested in the characters. But, yeah, like the effects and all that are what's driving I would assume the interest for this. And it is in the landscape of what's out there right now. It's not a ghost story. It's not a slasher. Yeah. It's something a little bit different than what you've been getting, but it is repackaging a lot of things you liked from 80s movies, because this would have, aside from like the modern touches, like they're really like they have cell phones and stuff, but there's not a lot of stuff that makes it super modern. This could have been set in the 80s. Have cell phones in this. That's what I said. They do have cell phones, but there's not a lot other than that makes it modern. And they could have just, if you just took the cell phones out, you could have easily released this movie in the 80s, and it, could have done well then.
I think the like most damning thing about this is, when you watch films from filmmakers like Jaredowski or like Lynch, or anything that deals with kind of a film that you would call quote unquote weird or mysterious, like that's the appeal, because you feel like it's coming from some other place, and when they can feel original and creepy and cool. This is just mimicking that. And that defeats the purpose of why those things are interesting in the first place, because they do feel new and interesting. And then when somebody just copies that, it's like, okay, you're pulling anything out of that. Like if you're just going to copy Friday the 13th, that's fine, because that is what it is. Like I would rather you copy that than something that's weird, because it just, the way it occurs in this, it almost feels, it's not genuine. And then you also have the kind of typical small town setting, or they're in, a hospital or something, the sheriff, like there's nothing that draws you in that makes you tell somebody, aside from the effects, like, oh, you got to see this film. This is an interesting perspective. Or I like the way they, put a twist on this. It's just, as Derek said, it kind of feels like just stuff thrown at the screen. And I hate to say that, because obviously a lot of passion went into making this film. But that's just kind of what the end result turned out to be, unfortunately, because you can tell they really worked hard on this. It just didn't come together, I don't think, for me.
And that's why I say, like, I look at the effects in this film, and the effects were great. And that's why I like to compare this to the Frankenstein film, because it's like both of those have really good creature features. They're good creature features, but one of them was more aware of what they were and just played it up, and it worked so much better. This one's like trying to be highbrow, high concept, and it's like, no, dude,
it's a turnoff.
You are, yeah, it's a turnoff. It's like, look, you that's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
What you are, and just if it has been more batshit crazy from the beginning, and just kind of like Evil Dead 2'd it up, where you're just having blood spewed everywhere, and then that would have been fine. But they tried to be like, combine Clive Barker's Hellraiser and I don't know, The Thing together and throw other elements in. It's like, no, you got too much in the pot, man.
I think you hit it on the head. Like, just kind of, hopefully next time they will come around and they'll kind of make the film that represents who they are, instead of just trying to kind of mimic what other people have done in the past. Even if they do what other people have done, do something and make it part of your own, make it something that speaks to you. And I was kind of thinking about John Wick with this film too, because, that came from, I guess one of the directors or both of them or something were stuntman before. They made a stuntman ass focused movie, with John Wick, and and that's why that first movie and the second one are so good. They know what they are.
Yeah, and
they have fun with it. They play into it, and they just deliver some kick-ass action. It's like, I wish they would have taken that approach with this. Like, know what you are, give us kick-ass gore effects, which you did, but just the way you wrap this package up, that's what killed the appeal of the effects for me.
Yeah, and I agree. It's just like, you gave me this really awesome present, but instead of putting it in wrapping paper, you just shit all over it. And you gave it to me. So it's covered in fecal matter. And I have to then, like, I don't know. It's like, come on, man. The inside's great, but the way you packaged it was just awful.
And again, they try to really, you can tell they put a lot of their heart into this. And I wished it would have worked out more. And I hope to see them do something more. I want them to find that right project that they can really do and take a hold of and really make something that stands out, that's truly their own and their own voice, like John Wick was. There's a million action films, but they made one that was like so at their core, and it turned out to be this really original thing that was also just like a million other action films. Has that something, that special ingredient. And hopefully these guys can come out and make something like that next time around.
They have it when it comes to the monster effects.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know what they're doing with creature concept designs. And so they have that, which is really important. And that's something that lacks in a lot of major films nowadays, is horror has gotten away from that. So I want to see
Yeah,
more of it.
just do like a Hellboy or something where somebody has to hunt down these creatures,
Yeah.
like a Van Helsing, and then it gives you excuses to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well,
But yeah,
because like you had two guys you thought they were going to do that, and it doesn't make any sense.
well, like
yeah.
with like I said, so like right now the reviews on it are positive. I think that like I said, I think a lot of people are kind of burnt out, at least like the hardcore genre fans. So, you know, like we've reviewed a bunch of stuff over the course of the podcast, and then like not to call it specific movies, but more recent movies. Just, you know, like movies like It Follows or stuff like that. There's a lot of people that their immediate reaction is like, oh, fucking sucks, nothing happens, bullshit, I want another Friday 13th or something like that. Or what are those movies that Derek always hates? The Laid to Rest, the movies of Chrome Skull. Or whatever.
God, I hate them.
So there's a lot of
Wait,
genre
what movie? I don't know what you guys are talking about.
God.
So Laid to Rest is like a more modern slasher series. It's just like ultra violent, ultra like mean spirited.
It's called I hate women films because that's all they kill.
So so it's just a movie that's trying to placate the desire people have for like another just kind of formulaic slasher, movies like that. So I think a lot of genre fans are tired of the slow build horror film, or like I said, things like The Witch or The Babadook, or a lot of these kind of ghost stories you get now. So this is definitely not a ghost story, and it has effects throughout. It's not all just saving it all for the last 10 minutes. So I think that the uniqueness of it in the landscape is what's drawing people to it and getting it talked about, more so than the actual story and the elements that, at least to us, matter in terms of the characters and the plot and getting you invested beyond just liking the fact that it doesn't have jump scares and ghosts and stuff. But I guess we can move into giving our scores and kind of final thoughts, and then go into spoiler discussion. As we mentioned, I mean, the movie you can watch. Somebody could tell you a lot of the beats, and you can go in and watch it, and it not really affect your enjoyment because it's some of the stuff's a little bit more abstract. But in terms of the scores, like I said, on IMDb, it had a 6 out of 10, I believe. Let's see. It has a 6.0 out of 10 the user score. The Metacritic is 62, and the Rotten Tomatoes is 74. So generally, for a low-budget horror release, those are pretty good scores compared to a lot of the other stuff. And like a 6 out of 10, like if it came down to this or Thinner, which would you tell somebody to watch?
Thinner.
Yeah, I'm with Thinner too, because you have the end where you have like the mafia gypsy, like that's fun because it's bad, you know. I actually took notes on this one, which I don't usually do, but pretty much what I concluded was that it was 20 to 30 minutes too long. Not much style or substance in it. There wasn't any, like, it'd be hard for me to, like, if somebody asked me why to watch this movie and I tell them the effects, I'm going to point to Frankenstein's Army because that's a better effects driven movie. You know, like if I had to pick a movie solely on that, I'm sending them that way. I'm not sending them to this.
Wait,
There's just
I think I know. Crap. I think I know what type of shirt or poster to get Derek for Christmas.
Like I love that movie. Like it's just, you know, hopefully the people will hear and go watch it. But 4 out of 10. I can't, you know. And it's funny. I can give two consecutive movies both the same score, but like they're two completely different things. Like a 4 out of 10 for Thinner is like it's a good 4 out of 10.
Well, it's got the goofier effects and you know, similarly, I think both movies could be a little bit shorter, but there is more of a story there to it.
There's Stephen King wrote that story, so I trust his storytelling ability. Obviously,
like a big complaint that I've seen on a number of the like critical reviews and user reviews is that like the effects and all that are well thought out and structured and very strong for the budget level and what it is. The story is not there. It's not there really. I mean, there's a story there, but you know, I watched it through all the way, and I was like, it took you to a certain point. You realize like some of the character relationships, and then So there's just stuff that if you, I don't know, maybe the point was to be obscure on some of that stuff, or not obscure, but to just not be upfront and, linear on the storytelling. But to me, I think that was to the detriment. So like I gave Thinner a 5, so like 5.5 out of 10. So I think this is, I don't know, like I think I go like 5. Like I think that the effects, like this is something that I think will be very, like if it's on Netflix. So I'm trying to think of other stuff like The Last Shift was a movie I heard a lot about and watched, which was like more of like a cop has to stay like her first day on the job at like a precinct that's closing down. There's like ghost crap. So like I heard a lot about that and watched it and I was kind of disappointed. I think this is something, The Void is something that if it hits streaming services, people probably talk a lot about. You'll probably get a fair amount of people interested in it and watching it. And it'll probably have like a similar type of buzz. But I would recommend like this over The Last Shift and some of the other like ghost story stuff that I've heard people talk about. But
all right, so
Sean,
my turn, Derek. You already went. You got yours the same as Thinner. I honestly, I hate to do this to these guys. I give this a 3 out of 10 for me.
And I think that's fair.
I was so bored. Like I never really care about watching this film ever again. I would not recommend. I wouldn't recommend this to somebody to pay money for this. Really, if they were huge fans of, if they're into independent horror films, lower budget independent horror films, and gore effects, and they just want to see what somebody's done, then watch it. But judging it as a movie that you're going to watch, like I would never, I can't imagine showing this to my parents and not because it's gore or whatever. They would just be like so turned off and what the hell is even going on?
The narrative isn't quite there without the genre element. So
exactly. Yeah. Like it's for that, like that means it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
Because the genre element isn't strong enough. Like I don't think it mimics some things, but I don't necessarily think it does like a stellar job at it. Like it doesn't make me feel nostalgic at all.
No.
I think it misses the mark. It's just copying it and it doesn't do anything for me.
Like
I hate to bash it too, because MJ Jones is hot on this, and I know he's disappointed when we disagree with him. And we were gonna get around to watching it too, but we specifically was like, okay, he's
too. Like I'd heard other people mention this, and I'd seen some buzz about it because it's right now it's in like its limited theatrical run, so it's doing like a few small city like theater rollouts, and it's on video on demand. So I'd heard about it. And then, like I said, we've had people talk about us watching it and have seen things reiterated. So then finally watched it. And it's one of those things where currently, like, I think it also benefits from not having a ton of reviews out there. I'll be interested to see if those, like, the Rotten Tomatoes score stays about where it's at or if it goes up or down as more people review it. Because I don't think there were a ton of reviews out there now. There were...
yeah, I mean, it's got, let's see here. Den of Geek gave it a positive review.
Well, actually, it's got 54 reviews, so it's not a tiny amount.
Yeah, Roger Ebert negative review. Hollywood Reporter gave it a positive review. Los Angeles Times positive review. I wonder if they just threw this. Are they throwing this at people? Are they hiring freelancers that kind of this is their thing and they're it affects them on a certain level? Because I feel like if you show this to a non-genre fan, and not that this is who this is for, but for me, I'm kind of hard to please when it comes to I don't get taken in by that all the time. Like I don't get taken in by nostalgia alone. And I know some people that'll do it for them, and I could see that working for them on this. But for me, it does not do it. And when it doesn't land, it's a turnoff. So it goes the opposite direction for me. But yeah, I mean, there's some normal outlets that aren't just horror sites that are giving this positive reviews. So, maybe it's just hitting the right chord for some people.
But that's the one thing I don't understand about it, because like I always kind of hold superhero movies to a certain standard. And I say, like with Logan, if you take the superhero element out, is it still a good movie? You take that genre bit out, and it's still a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
It kind of fits, something similar, not the exact same thing, but it kind of is in the same vein as like a John Wick or one of those revenge style movies in a way, or like one of the Clint Eastwood, Final Ride movies. And I think of this, and I'm like, okay, if you take The Thing, and if I take honoriness out of
The Thing,
still a good movie.
Out of the Thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a Southern accent.
I'm just, I do that too sometimes.
But but you take that stuff out, you still have like a good, solid movie because it could almost be a spy thing with The Thing, and it would work.
Yeah, it's like a thriller. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think what happens,
You take it out.
it
and it's
doesn't
like-
have the narrative through line, the character development that would anchor the movie and make it broaden its demographic beyond fans of 80s horror. I think if you just show this to I guess somebody that's never seen 80s horror that would see this and then go back and watch a lot of stuff like Hellraiser 2, probably enjoy it. But so I guess we can do some plugs here real quick to move into our spoiler discussion. So you can find all the work we're doing at housebyvideostore.com. You can find links there to all of our social media accounts, to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything you can find there, YouTube. You can do us a huge favor if you're listening via iTunes, or even if you're not listening via iTunes, you can go and leave a review in iTunes. And it helps other people find the podcast and just helps the podcast be more visible. And then within iTunes, we're part of the Never Nervous Podcast Network. So there's other podcasts on there from the area that you can check out if you're interested. And then this weekend, actually, we're going to be shooting a new short film that we will be releasing at some point, because the plan is to shoot it this weekend and get it done relatively soon so we can get to some festivals or stuff like that. But then, if it'll be released by the fall. It'll be released before Halloween, and the plan is to do at least one more and then maybe some other shorter stuff. So we try to put our money where our mouth is and make our own stuff. And then I guess if the guys who made The Void want to review our short films, they're welcome to do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue.
Yeah. But so you can find all this stuff at housebyvideostore.com. Facebook is probably the most important place to follow us. I put an article up on Facebook last week. I'll probably reshare it again soon. That just has a link to all of our short films we made so far and a little bit of information about each. And then it has the trailer and a clip from the segment Sean directed from Volumes of Blood Horror Stories, since we can't obviously include that segment in its entirety online. But so you can check that note out. It has links to all the short films. But if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Twitter at Will_Droid.
You can find me pretty much at any major social media thing at MetaWorldDerek.
And I'm at Splevin Sean. And I just remembered I did watch Mystery Science Theater 3000. Watched 1.5 episode before I left, and I love it. I love the original series. I'm going to watch some more of that this week. So
Yeah, I was meaning to. I just did not have time.
Yeah.
But so now I move into the spoiler discussion for The Void. Like I said, I don't think there'll be too much just because the movie is obscure enough. So if you want to see this, you can. I guess you want to get it spoiled completely for you because we're going to cover everything. But so now we're doing full spoilers, and so the doctor being the main bad. Like I said, it kind of followed the footsteps of like Event Horizon and these other things where there's a character and then they're the big baddie. And you kind of have like a traditional like bad guy, but then at the end you have all the cult. Like I think if they had just like focused on the cult members, that's a better through line and gives you more to work with.
Yeah,
because the cult members and the white hoods and stuff was pretty creepy.
But they weren't doing anything. They were
that's the thing. Is like they weren't.
They weren't trying to actively get in. It wasn't like Night of the Living Dead with cult members or Assault on Precinct. You know what I mean? It was just
like if they had made that the focus instead of having all the creature stuff. Like, and then at the end, it kind of does like a Hellraiser 2 or Lovecraftian type thing with when the doctor has like the cult members and they're trying to get the girl to rebirth his dead daughter. And then it's just a big creature thing. And there's all this stuff going on. And then you kind of have the more like obscure, like even David Lynch type thing with like all the different flashes to the, I guess, the void or whatever that universe
like,
is.
The thing is, like, the void was actually cool looking, but the biggest problem I have is like, this is the character development stuff. At no point do you like Allison had no story arc with her. So when she disappears, which he obviously told her not to go in the basement by herself, and she does, and she like disappears, and then she winds up on a table, and her stomach is looking like it's from Slither. You don't feel bad for her, and it's like, oh, okay, well, she's dead. And like the doctor, he never really got built up properly, and he didn't have enough to be like a big like shock or twist. You kind of figure that pretty early on that like he was going to be the main antagonist. Like as soon as he got stabbed in the neck, you're like, he's going to be the main antagonist. And everything was pretty force fed to you. Maybe not force fed, but it was just pretty obvious to see where everything was going really early on.
Yeah, me and too. Like like I said, the creature effects are pretty cool. The cult uniforms are kind of cool. They didn't really do a whole lot, and then you kind of had like
knives.
Then you had the different elements of like where the nurse cut her face up and stuff. So you had different elements, but there was so much that kind of got thrown at you that no one thing was like the driving force. And like I said, none of the characters were that like you didn't find out that the characters were father and son until the end. You didn't like,
and then even then, I'm glad you brought that up because like they never really gave. Okay, the motivation for them was that their wife/mother died, but you don't know how she died. But I guess it's somewhat implied that the cult killed her, and then that's why they went to the meth house. But I don't understand any of that. I was like, so that caused them to go to the house with all the drug addicts in it with all the crazy shit and destroy everything in that house, and then kill the girl and set her on fire and then chase the guy down. But they never really fully explained that. So I was like, I don't really get their motivation. But they're the only ones that seemed to know what was going on, but even they didn't know what was going on. So a lot of it didn't make any sense,
Yeah, I mean, the story, like I said, the story was kind of secondary. And then like when they went to the dungeon area, like it didn't have like the narrative push to make you concerned for the characters.
No.
Because like really they just gave you very basic outlines of anything about any of the characters to make you care whatsoever. So it wasn't like you're sitting there like on the edge of your seat, what's going to happen to these people. So it was really just more of like a showcase for the effects they had of the bodies in the
but even then like they didn't show, and I think that's one thing that upsets me too is like you had good creature designs, but at the end of the day it's like you didn't show them off in the proper way. They didn't do the right things. You only had two people in the entire film get killed by creatures. You had the Officer Dickbag, I can't think of his name from the early part. He got killed.
The state trooper. Well, I mean, you had multiple people that got killed throughout them, and then like
but only two of them were killed by creatures.
Well, then there was the guy that the dad and son were chasing down that got taken away by one of them, and then the dad was getting eaten by the daughter thing. So I mean, there were multiple people that got killed by creatures. It's just the overall thing was that the story wasn't there. The effects were cool. Once again, if this was just a segment in an anthology, could have been really fun. Or if they had focused on one specific area. But as it is, a lot of time happened without you really being invested in the characters. So.
Well, that's why that's a segment for VHS was a better version of this.
I mean, it was different enough, though. Like, it was the only different. The only thing was there was a cult-type character. Cult or people trying to use some cosmic force to do something which is similar to Hellraiser, which is similar to a crap ton of movies.
Yeah, but I'm saying is I'm just looking at something that's relatively recent, and you have a cult where you have somebody who's pregnant that births something evil. I just thought that it was creepier in VHS than this, and that was a maybe 30-minute segment. I don't remember, but a movie that was literally, a third of the time was more effective in every sense of everything, and didn't have the same budget probably. I don't know. But as I look at that, it's like everything on that worked so much better. And even the plot that they used were like at the end, like the thing catches up and like calls him dad. Like that to me worked on more levels than what this did, because like this guy went through all this trouble to get his daughter reborn, and they immediately started killing him. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, we're going to go do this now. And it's like, what? The entire point of this movie is to bring this thing back to life, and they're killing it, and you don't even care.
Yeah.
My biggest issue is like there was no concern at all for this. It's like you went through hell and back literally, and you don't even care. At that point, I was like, screw it, I'm done. It made no sense. He's like, oh, you're killing it? Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to go eat this Jimmy John sandwich and watch what happens. And I look like a really bad suit from a crappy Roger Corman film. And it's like, okay. Well,
All right.
I thought the Doctor's transformation, I thought he looked good. I liked that a lot.
But they didn't show him enough, though. You know, I see it like.
Yeah, I would have liked it if they would have brought him more in the middle, in the beginning, just to like, have some more mystery about it. Like, then you realize, oh, it's not two different characters. It's this one character. And this, you know what I mean? Like there could have been more. The mysterious stuff felt so much more disconnected. And like, even though the cult members looked kind of cool, they were still like, okay, this is a cliche thing I've seen a lot, but their outfits look pretty cool and stuff. But by that final scene, when he's standing up there in front of the triangle and then the cult members on each side, I just thought it looked a little goofy at that point, because they're just standing there like dummies, not doing anything. And it didn't give off a creep factor at all. It was,
and like the girl, and she kills the dad or kills her grandpa, and it's like, again, I found the birth scene from VHS more disturbing than I found this scene. And it's like, I mean, it was kind of cool to see like her half body getting dragged behind the creature, but it's like, apparently the main sheriff's dad was a part of this too. And it's like, but that wasn't even. There's too many plot lines going on here, and they couldn't dive into them fully because they had the father son, and they didn't. That would have almost been a more interesting story from their perspective, Or if you just focus on one individual, if you focus on the sheriff, and his ex-wife or his current wife's dilemma. They were just like a kid in a candy store, and they just had too much going on, and they lost focus, and it detracted from the story, And,
I wish once I got the script down, they would have went through and said, okay, let's focus on this draft on these characters to try to, or this character to kind of make them feel more fleshed out and like a real character. Now let's do this character. It really just felt like they kind of wrote everybody at once and figured out the effects they wanted to do, and then didn't really think about the best way to kind of tell each of these stories. I don't know. Any other spoiler stuff that you can think of, William? Because like, honestly, I just didn't care about anything to kind of dive into it, because it's all just, it feels like more of a jumbled mess.
Yeah, I think that covers pretty much all the stuff about this movie. So.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is like, I wish that when they had the Nick Cage face-off eye stab scene, that she would have said face off. That would have been like a good 3 points more on this film.
Some levity, it's like
but like I said, I think and I don't want to I hate to smash over this movie, but it's like if they just rein themselves in a little bit and maybe not, because I feel like they try to make this a little too highbrow, and it's like the overarching theme that wasn't really, and in the end, you have the sheriff and his wife. The sheriff and the Allison character, in just staring at the pyramid.
Yeah, I was like,
okay. Yeah.
I totally expected to end there, because I'm like, it's going to end on this, it's supposed to be, I don't know what, but it's probably just going to end. And then it just ended. And it was like, that's not climactic at all.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, I would have rather them never even shown that. And then just left it completely implied to what had happened, they showed too much on that, but then they didn't show enough. Like when they get in the basement and you have like the creature, it's like stabbing its head into the hole again and again and again, and its face is just like missing most of it. It's like that was creepy, but like it would have been okay just to have like a crazy, insane scene where they're hacking them all up with their fire axes and they're shooting with the shotgun, but that didn't happen. You know,
budgetary reasons.
You had one guy get killed. And then, I watch a movie where they had Frankenstein's Army, and they had an airplane character blow up.
I think we're covering all the same points. I think we've covered enough about this movie to wrap this episode up. So
Frankenstein's Army.
I think that covers all of our discussion on The Void and Thinner. So that will bring this episode of the House by Video Store podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.